So, does movement start in your mind or your body? This was something I was pondering on the weekend. And so we can often think that our mind is and our body are two separate functions. And what happens is we try to isolate one from the other. But if you think about any type of stressful situation that you've been in life, and you've just stopped yourself and then you've taken a few deep breaths, how much calmer do you feel? That's your mind actually, helping you with your blood pressure and your heart rate and lowering that stress levels. And there's that connection between the mind and the body. And so we can see this play out when we ask women, what's your biggest challenge when it comes to starting a fitness program? And so what will happen is, the top two that we get is, I don't have the time or I don't have the motivation. Now, if you think about time or motivation, isn't that our minds telling us that we don't have time or we don't have the motivation to do it? So, because I'm sure that there are other people out there who are probably equally as busy as what we are, or even busier, who are still finding the time to exercise. Or there are those that really aren't that motivated, but they still get up each day and they do their exercise program. So it's Peter here, and Sal and Sue from Strong Healthy Women. How are we all doing today?
Good, thank you.
Good, good, good. Are you excited for this topic?
I am.
You are. You had to think about that one yourself. Sue's got notes. Oh, goodness, goodness, goodness. As someone who has actually experienced, big T trauma in her life, one of the things that I know that I did as a child was I disconnected from myself. I tried to isolate one aspect of something from another aspect. When I didn't deal with it, these types of feelings kept on cropping up and it didn't serve me in any way. So it was really important for me to actually identify that, some of those feelings that I was having about being unwell in my body, that was coming from the fact that I wasn't really dealing with what had happened in my life. Anything you want to add there, girls?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say the same thing, that, what happens in your mind, as you said before, affects your body. And so you were talking about breathing, that calms you down. But if you are stressed, you'll find that your body reacts. You tense all up, your tummy might get a little bit upset, you feel your nerves are on edge. And so there is that definite connection with our mind and our body, and vice versa. So that's the first thing that we need to think about. But also what you talked about then, I was thinking, well, if someone wants to go and start exercising, sometimes your mind is too cluttered. And like you just talked about, Peter, not letting things go, or not dealing with perhaps issues from the past, or your mind is just so cluttered that you can't think about sending the message to your body saying, come on, let's get moving, because you're going to feel good after it. So I think it's important that you remember what you were talking about then when you were younger, the way it affected you. You've got to learn to let go of things. And if you have got any issues, you need to resolve those, because they're really the stumbling blocks to you getting going with your movement.
Yeah, that's a good point. One of the studies that I read was a study that they did on getting people to work out to exhaustion. Now, here's the thing, working out to exhaustion, scientists don't know what that is, because for each and every one of us, we're all different. So it's all going to be different in itself. So it's when you personally feel exhausted. But one of the things that they did after they did the initial assessment of everybody was they then had them go and do their exercises for like another 2 weeks. But they divided them into 2 groups. And the second group, they gave them self-talk exercises to do. Like, so as they were exercising or before they started exercising, you know, it was things like, I'm feeling good, I'm doing great. So just general types of positive affirmations in regards to their exercise sessions. What actually happened is when they did this reassessment in 2 weeks' time, both groups had improved because there was that level of consistency. But the second group, they went for longer, they worked out harder, and they did it with less effort. So they were monitoring their heart rates and the likes. And so that was really interesting in itself, that how much self-talk can either bring us down or build us up.
And
Yeah,
it's such
yeah.
it's such a hard thing to come out of. Sorry, ladies, this is very, very
Real and raw for you.
I wasn't expecting this to be so emotional for me, so I do apologize. If you want me to leave, I will.
No, do not apologize, because this is how someone else may be feeling, Sal. So just talk from your heart. Take a moment.
It's that negative talk. You know, you were saying that it was that positive talk before, you know, doing the workouts and that sort of thing, and you're talking about the trauma and everything, and it can be so hard. You're telling yourself, you know,
Yes.
Come on, today's going to be a good day. I'm going to be able to do this. But then you just don't, because you just have these voices. And I'm not crazy, I'm not weird or whatever, but you just have this negative, such a weight, and it can be really hard to get out of that, even when you're trying to talk positive to yourself. Sorry, ladies, I was not expecting this at all.
Don't apologize.
But what Sal's saying is something that everybody, if they're truthful, we all feel that way. And, you know, people would look at us and go, oh, you're trainers and you should be doing, you know, you should be fine, this, that, and the other. We all go through that. We all have those days where we're feeling negative about ourselves, or we have that negative self-talk. I mean, God, we're our worst critics. We're always building everybody else up, but we're good at pulling ourselves down and, you know, pointing out every little thing that's wrong with us. And that is hard to overcome. That is hard to overcome when your voice is saying, well, for example, to me, I'm 65. Now, I try not to dwell on that age, but sometimes my body isn't, you know, might be feeling 65 or 80 or 90, and my mind is still 30, but it's that little, you know, sort of feeling where you think, oh, am I getting older? Am I still able to do this? And, you know, we talk about being positive and being, you know, pro-aging and all that sort of thing, but everybody has those times. We are human beings, and we are always going to have those range of emotions. No matter how strong-minded we think we are, we will always have those times, and it's how we learn, I suppose, what works for us to overcome it.
It's a really good point, Sue. And Sal, thank you for being honest about how you're feeling as well too. One of the things that is really important to acknowledge is that we all have ups and downs, as you said, Sue. And we're never 100% on something. And it's a comment that I made to the ladies in the Fit Flex session this morning. It was about our growth comes from the challenges, you know, so they get out of bed each day to exercise. They may not want to do it, but they get out of bed and they do it for lots of different reasons, because, you know, ultimately they want to live a life that they choose to live, doing what they choose to do. But it's when we have those challenges, when we're feeling in those moments where we can't do any more during the session, or we can't get out of bed to go to the session, it's when we have those moments and we take the time to just sit in it and reflect on it, that is when we have the greatest growth around that particular area that is that challenge for us. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that we can all get caught into our comfort zones and just do what we do, whatever that happens to be. And so it's like, give myself a little challenge each day. And that challenge may be something that's really, really simple. So it may be that I have intentions of going and working out and doing, you know, a half an hour session, but I can't do it. I just cannot pull myself forward to do that session. But what I can do is go, okay, I'm going to sit in this and I will go outside. And this is one of the processes that I use. Because for me, just looking at the sky or being out in nature is the thing that helps pull me through any of those dark thoughts that I'm having at that point. So, and what sometimes I'll just sit, but other times what I'll do is I will walk. And so I am getting some level of movement going. But what I'm doing is I am spending that time connecting my mind, body, and spirit. And so I'm actually allowing myself to be in it. Now, I'm not sure whether that's helping anybody or not, but you know, but that is just how I go through these processes, because as you said, we all have those moments. If you take it to, sorry, Sue, you're going to say something?
No, that's okay. You keep going. I can talk about it later.
If you take it to the next level as well too, when you're in a fitness session, and I'll just use a bicep curl as an example, you know, you can grab that bicep and you can that weight, and you can go as crazy as you possibly can and as fast as you possibly can during that exercise. But are you really connecting your mind and your muscles at that point and making the most of that exercise, or are you just moving through the process? Because we all know that when we focus on the muscle, when we visualize the muscle that we're working, then what happens is that's when we challenge it, and that's when the growth comes. So that's when we get stronger. So it's no different. Our muscle is the same as our mind. And, you know, this is where mind-muscle connection is working. But in order for our mind to improve, we challenge it. and that is when we take a step forward.
I mean, it's no different talking about the mind-muscle connection. It's no different to walking, you know. It's our mind is connected to what we're doing with walking. And so it just becomes a habit, and that's what we do. We just walk, we walk, we walk. But our mind's still controlling how we walk and what we do, and you know, those sort of things, that movement. And so I'm a big believer in being in your workout with your mind, you know, and thinking about the movements. So doing a deadlift and thinking about, okay, your deadlift comes from your hips, which are your hinges, focus on that. Bicep curls, as you said, Peter, are a great one.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like you've got to have, it's almost like you want your mind to have a laser, you know, so that laser is pointing from your mind to your bicep. And it's getting the ladies to get that image in their head, you know, that's what you want to target, and connect that mind with it, because that's where you find your growth too, like physical growth, and getting stronger.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's surprising how we think about mindfulness, which is, you know, being in the moment, and it's a big buzzword and everything, but not many people do think about the mind-body connection or the mind-muscle connection when you're working out. And, you know, you could be doing something and you're not focusing, you're not having that connection, and it's really of little value. Yes, you might be moving, but you're not getting the best possible result or the best possible outcome if you aren't connecting and understanding what you're doing and why you're doing it. And I think that leads it to where it's important to have a trainer to be able to explain those things, and to have, you know, to understand and to be invested in yourself enough to want to learn and want to learn the correct technique and learn, you know, all those things, so that after a while you're training yourself, sort of thing. But it's that mindfulness, not just in other areas of our life, but especially in the exercise area.
I think it's a circle too, because you have your mind, as you said, Peter and Sue, like you're in that moment with that workout, I'm connecting with my bicep. Okay, then there's that circle of feeling back to your mind. Okay, that's where I'm feeling it. So yeah, I'm a big believer in connecting with that muscle, but also feeling it. Okay, can you feel it? Can you feel that bicep working? Or is that the movement, you know, is that where your movement's coming from? Those sort of things.
It's interesting that you say that, because there's been a number of ladies who have recently said to me during the workout, we love it when you say this is where you should be feeling this, because then they go, oh, hang on, I'm not feeling it there. So they can quickly make the adjustment or ask the question about that particular muscle and why they're not feeling it there. Or, you know, we can see it, you know, when we're looking at the screen, to go, oh, hang on a minute, you know, their body's out of alignment, so they're not going to be feeling this in the right spot. So it is a tool that coaches use quite often, is, you know, where are you feeling it, or looking at the visual things, thinking that they're not going to be feeling it in a particular point as well too.
Can I
Can
I just say with another point there too, that it's also, you have to be mindful that you are doing it correctly, because otherwise you could perhaps injure yourself. So if you're not feeling, if the coach is saying, you know, are you feeling it here, and you're not, you know, you need to be aware of that, because if you keep doing it incorrectly, you're going to perhaps injure yourself. So that's that aspect of just a holistic mindfulness, I think, and, you know, connection there.
Yeah. You know, one of the other things that I was thinking about is, and I hear this quite often from other fitness trainers, is that they say that there's no difference in how you exercise as, a 50 or 60 or 70-year-old compared to, 20, 30, 40-year-old as an example. And yet, the science shows us that our body changes, our mind changes as we're aging. So therefore, it would naturally follow that how we exercise will naturally need to change as well too. And it's fantastic. If you're still doing exactly the same thing as what you did in your 20s and it is working for you, go for it. And, you're probably one of the rare unicorns, because as Sue alluded to, some days she feels older than what she thinks she is, in her mind. I'm exactly the same as that. Some days I feel like I'm 30, and other days I feel like, oh my goodness, this is age catching up with me. And I think what happens is also the mind and the body, even though it's changing as we age, it can get weaker, but it can also get stronger. So, use saying no as an example. When we're younger, we probably say yes to everything. Someone asks us to go and do something, we say yes. But as we get older, we value ourselves a little bit more. And so we will start to say, oh, no, I can't do that. I'd love to be able to, but unfortunately, I can't do that. And so we start to, step into that a little bit more. And I know that, Sal, you've said this in the past, how you don't so much care about what other people say anymore about, how you look as an example. Your sisters said some horrible things out of love, I'm sure, to you when you were younger. But, about your weight and things like that. But, and you cared about that deeply. Whereas now you're more focused on you and how you're feeling. And that's what's important. That's our mind getting stronger as we're older. And we often get categorized in the cranky old woman area or the cranky old man area. But that's us just standing and saying, no, I don't want to do that. Or this is the way
and I
I'm
think
going
it's
to do
us
that.
setting boundaries. Yeah. Setting boundaries too. And I would love, I've got 2 teenage girls. Well, not teenage. Georgia's not a teenager now, but when they were teenagers, and it was just, if I could bottle that whole, and I was 37 when I went, you know what, I don't care what anyone thinks of me. I really don't, This is me. This is my life. And you would love to bottle that attitude and give it to teenage girls. And if I have said it once to my girls, I've said it 100 times. Who cares what people think, especially Olivia now that she's a teenage mum. Her whole, she was invited to an 18th on Saturday night, but she was like, oh Mum, I don't know whether to go, what will people think? Who cares? And you would just love to bottle that whole attitude. Because as women, and I'm sure you guys too have had that, epiphany. And I know that I was 37 when it was like, you know what, I don't care. You care about different things, but if someone has something negative to say to you, well, what does it matter?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, we were talking about how you can get stronger or weaker as you age. And if you think about lifting a saucepan off the oven, as an example, off the stove top, you might have in the past used one hand and now you're using 2. That's a clear indication that, those muscles in your body are getting weaker. And so again, do you notice it? And, or does your mind just go, oh, that's just age. That's just the thing that's happening. As opposed to, oh, hang on a minute, I am noticing it, so I'm aware of it. So what can I do to help myself improve this? Because if I can't do this, and this is my new normal, and I keep declining from here, then it's going to mean that I'm not going to be able to look after myself as I get older.
That's exactly right. And it can be too your mind, you know, I'm always talking about that fear we've spoken about a few times, you know, that fear that creeped in for me. You know, this is a fear coming from my mind of falling down my stairs. And I've walked these stairs for 15 years. You know, holding that saucepan with two hands, it could be just your mind saying, okay, well, you're at this age, so you're weak now. When in fact you're probably not. You know, you may very well not be weak. And so you've got to push that thought away and go to, okay, I'm going to hold it with one hand because I'm not weak. You know, I'm still doing my workouts and I'm still doing this and I'm still doing that.
So you want to jump in there with anything?
No, I just think that, you know, it can work in reverse too. I was just listening to you both talking and my mind was going, and I was thinking too, you know, I think Sal said before about the circle. Your mind is strong, then you'll start thinking about your body. You know, you build your body strong, and when you've got a strong body, you feel better, you feel more alive, you feel more active, which then of course helps your mind to think more positively. So it's just so interconnected that way. And that's why, you know, sometimes when you are feeling down or you're not having a good day, that is the perfect time to do some exercise, because any sort of movement, and, you know, even if you just said, well, look, for 5 minutes, I'm just going to go for 5 minutes. I won't, you know, invariably you'll go for longer. But even that 5 minutes of movement will switch your mind from being sluggish and maybe being negative to being a lot more upbeat and a lot more positive. So it sort of works both ways.
It does work both ways. And it certainly means that you feel better afterwards. But it's actually taking that first step that is the hardest for anything that we're trying to do. It doesn't even have to be around exercise. It's like, you know, my house is dirty, I've got to clean it. Oh, I don't really want to do it. So, you know, what other things can I go and do in place of it? Exercise can be exactly the same. You know, what other things can I go and do in place of it? So if we can spend the time in reflection, and I always come back to this self-awareness stage, it's spend some time really thinking about it. Get out of that busy zone and doing everything, because we'll fill our time as opposed to just sitting and allowing ourselves to think about things. One of the things that I recently noticed at a medical center is how busy they are. Just, you know, there are people everywhere. It's, you know, on every seat, and it's just this constant flow of traffic coming through. And, you know, we go to the doctors to, you know, help us feel better. But I wonder if sometimes that what we could do is help ourselves feel better, as opposed to actually going into the doctors to get something else to feel better. So I'll give you an example of that. So I had a headache, and they said to me, oh, you know, here's a Panadol. Do you want a Panadol? And I said, oh, no. And they said, oh, seriously, it'll just fix it up like that. And I said, yeah, I realize, but I don't do Panadol. I don't do medication unless it's absolutely necessary. And it's like, well, why would you put up with that headache? And I said, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get up off this seat in a minute. I'm going to walk outside and get myself some fresh air. And I'm going to go and have some water, because it may just be, sitting in this environment that is the thing that's bringing my headache on, And so when I did go outside and I got some fresh air and I had some water, my headache started to reduce. It didn't totally go away, but it started to reduce. So, that again is my mind stepping into how my body's feeling and doing something that felt right for me.
That's exactly right. It doesn't always have to be straight to the medicine.
No, exactly.
And that goes for your fitness and your aches and pains. It could just be that you need to start working out. You need to start doing strength training. We've had ladies come off blood pressure medication.
Yes.
Because they have decided that they would would rather move than be on blood pressure medication.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes we can be our own medicine. And I've said that before,
Yes. Yeah, totally. So you scribbled down a little note there. Was there something you wanted to finish up with?
Just to finish off, but I will say that I used to be on high blood pressure tablets and medication, and just by working out, just by having a consistent exercise program, I don't take them anymore. I don't need them. And so, I lost a bit of weight, strengthened up, got my cardio in check and all of that. So, it can be done. It's just sometimes you just have to make that start. But I just want to finish just by saying that we have to know ourselves. We don't have to worry because what works for someone else might not work for us, but we do have to know ourselves, take that time to just know what's going on in our mind and connect to that, see why it's happening and resolve it and just be aware.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to finish up with, going through those different steps. So it's being self-aware, being aware of the self-talk that you have, and identifying why movement and exercise is important to you. And your why is a whole other topic by itself. But I think it's important to also look for something that brings you a little bit of joy or a little bit of good feelings. So it might not bring you joy as you're doing it, but you might have those good feelings afterwards. I think it's also important to have something that you feel encouraged to do. So something that is going to get you off your seat, and to know that you've got someone encouraging you is really important. I think the other aspect of it is to have some type of balance in life, and to realize that we are all connected, our mind, body, and spirit. And I think it's important that we have a balance in all of those aspects of our life, and not try to isolate one from the other. Because I know for myself personally, and I know for the ladies who work out with us, that it is a mind, body, spirit connection when you're going through that exercise session. And when I say that, most people go, oh, you do yoga? No, we don't do yoga. We do strength and flexibility work. So, which is, very, very different. So you can get that mind, body, spirit connection from doing any form of exercise. It's just which one is the right one for you. So I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks for joining me, ladies. Lovely having you here, and we'll see you all next time. See you, girls. Bye.
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 Bye.